Well, good evening folks, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel, and yes, hello, yes, it had to happen. I had a failure to proceed moment, which was kind of inevitable with waking up any car really that's 20 odd years old, and I knew I wasn't going to get away with it completely. There was a hint of what might come along yesterday. I was out with Harley in the car and we had the dashboard lit up with, I think it was ABS, tracks, the traction control system, gearbox fault, several different messages all popped up at the same time, and it went into sort of like a fail-safe sort of limp-home mode. I can't remember what it's called, but basically something like that, and basically it barely ran. It just about ticked over, it just about moved at sort of tick over engine pace, but not much more than that, which was all slightly disappointing. Now, what usually happens with error messages like this, you don't suddenly find that the ABS, the anti-lock brakes, the traction control, the gearbox, they don't all suddenly fail at the same time. It's usually there's a problem with something that's common to everything electrical on the car. So really you're going back to basics in terms of electrics, wiring, and indeed the battery. Now, one thing I did notice, which was quite interesting, well, it's not really, but there is an earth lead down here, which for some reason, which is broken by the way, but there's an earth lead that runs from where the bonnet hinge bolts to the front panel, and it runs from there to, well, the other end of the bonnet hinge, as you can probably see there. So they used to be joined together. Now, quite what purpose that would serve, I'm not really sure, because there's nothing electrical on the bonnet, so it's not as if it needs a return earth feed for anything on the bonnet. So I don't know, is this an original thing even, because, you know, it's asking to fret and fray on the edge of this panel here, if that is a factory thing. So I'm not quite sure what this earth lead would have been for, but I will replace it just in case, because these cars, any modern car really, is just so finicky when it comes to electrics. Everything has to be 100%. So I think the first job, which I'll probably do tomorrow now because it's already in the evening and there's a bit of rain around, first job I think will be to replace this, because yeah, that isn't going to be a great connection if there's this big gap in the middle. So that's clearly something to do. Now, it's a bit weird because when I was, like I say, I had this fault once yesterday, and I switched off, switched back on again, and carried on my merry way. And we went out yesterday evening, not a problem at all. But when I went out this evening, after about 5 or 6 miles, all the error messages came on the dash, and it went into this sort of limp-home mode, which was all quite disappointing. So I was able to bail out and go down a little side road, switch off and on again, and it starts right up again, but it instantly goes into this sort of limp-home mode, which is all very strange indeed. So what I did find is that I was able to, if I started it up and gave it some welly, give it some accelerator straight away and hold the revs at sort of 1500, 2000 RPM, it would keep going and move. So I experimented moving backwards and forwards by keeping the revs up, and it sort of drove up and down the road okay. So I thought, right, I'll do that. I'll just get home that way and just keep it in a low gear. So I kept it in about 3rd gear all the way home and kept the revs up over 1500, 2000, something like that, and it drove back okay, fortunately. It was only, like I say, about 5 or 6 miles, something like that to do, so it wasn't the end of the world. But clearly there is a little electrical gremlin in here somewhere. So the first thing to do really when you've got a problem like this is to have a look at the battery, and there is the battery in the boot. It's a particularly hefty thing. Now, I believe I was told that this was changed just before I picked it up, and to be honest, it does look like a fairly new battery. Now, I put it on charge about 20 minutes ago. It's pulling just a smidge under 3 amps now. It was, when I first connected it, it was pulling probably 6 amps, something like that, and as you'd expect, it dropped back a little bit, but clearly it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was fully charged. So it could be that, I don't know if this battery was put on the bench and fully charged up before it was put on the car. It could be that it was literally bought off the shelf and put straight in the car, and it was good enough to get it running, and that's how it was left. I do not know. So really the first thing with any issues like this is to give the battery a good old clean, not clean, a charge up, and also clean the connections. Now I've checked all the connections in the boot here, and they all look pretty nice, because sometimes you get water in the boot and corrosion and all that kind of thing, but it all looks pretty dry. Again, this connector here, it all looks pretty clean. I will clean it up a little bit before reconnecting it once the battery is charged. I'll leave it charging overnight and I'll see how we go from there. But yeah, there's something common to all the systems on the car that was just been playing up a little bit, and I suspect it's either the battery or a dodgy earth or a dodgy wire somewhere, or all of them, yes, because obviously the car's been sat and you don't really know. But yeah, the first job is to replace that earth there. Like I said, I don't quite know what it does, because all it seems to do is go from one side of the hinge to the other. Error lights on the dash are never a nice thing. Unfortunately, my code reader, my ODBC code reader, doesn't seem to want to read any codes that are being thrown up. There is a Jaguar option on it, but it doesn't seem to read the codes or indeed let you erase them. So I can't actually reset it, so I need to do a bit of research on that as well, which is a bit disappointing, because it does list Jaguar in the list of manufacturers, and I tried Ford as well, but it didn't work there either. So yeah, clearly a little bit of investigation work to do here. So, as to be expected perhaps, a few little gremlins just rearing their head early days into the ownership of this 2002 XJ8. Yeah, if I am extremely lucky, then just giving the battery a proper charge might get me out of trouble. But can things really be that simple? Well, I've just swapped over the chargers because I'm not 100% sure about this up on here, so I'm giving this one a go. While that's happening, I've dug out my trusty battery terminal and connector cleaner. So basically you split this apart. This one here, this end, is designed to go on there, and you squirrel it around side to side, and that cleans up the terminals on top of the battery, but they look pretty clean. So you can actually take this out. There we go, and there you have the bit for cleaning inside the battery connections. I mean, they look pretty good to me, but pretty good isn't always good enough on this kind of thing. Everything's got to be bob on. They feel a little bit greasy. I mean, if it's got some of that, I mean, they used to be able to get that stuff called no corrode. Sometimes people use a bit of Vaseline or something just to stop them corroding, but I'm just wondering if maybe there's a bit too much of it in there. So we'll clean that out a little bit and just get those as clean as a new pin. At least we know they're right. Battery earth cable is this one, goes to negative, and it just bolts on to the inner wing over there. But that all looks clean and proper. There's no sign of corrosion anywhere, but that's always a possible. So we'll clean these up a little bit. We'll just leave the battery charger to do its thing, and then we'll give it a go. I tried to start it before I disconnected the battery to charge it, and it started right up, revved, sounding sweet as a nut. But clearly there's something amiss somewhere, so I've got a little bit of research to do this evening, I think. See if we can find the common reasons, the common causes for this kind of thing. I did a quick search on my phone while I was stuck at the side of the road pondering what to do, and there seems to be a fairly common fault on older X308s like this. So this is definitely, these are waters that many people have traversed before. So hopefully there'll be a lot of information on the internet about all this kind of thing. First things first, let's get the battery fully up to spec. Well folks, it's a couple of days later. My youthful assistant is down there working, doing a bit of work on the A40 actually, so hence the 4CV being rolled out of the garage. But back to the Jaguar. Now, as I think I mentioned in a video a day or so back, it's, when you get an error message or a series of error messages suddenly pop up all together, the chances of all these things suddenly failing at the same time are pretty remote. Like I say, ABS error, traction control error, gearbox fault, and then going into limp-home mode. Yeah, that just doesn't all happen at the same time unless there is something common to all those different systems that is packing up failing in some way. So I've been doing a little bit of research over the last day or so on this one, because I thought there's got to be a common issue somewhere. Of causing this particular problem. And reading around online, it seems to be a pretty common occurrence on slightly older Jaguars. There are several possible reasons that can cause all these error messages to suddenly pop up at once. It can even be something as simple as a fairly low battery. If the car's been started and stopped quite a few times in short succession without getting a chance to be fully recharged, that can cause all sorts of problems. So I did check, and I put the battery charger on it, and the battery was quite low. It was pulling about 6 amps on the gauge, which is quite a lot. Even though the battery it's a new battery that was fitted by the garage from where we bought it from, but I don't know if they actually fully charged it up before fitting it to the car, or whether it was literally just delivered, came off a shelf somewhere, put straight in the car started, and it was left without being fully charged up. And I think they need to be really charged up for everything to work as they should do, you know, because it's very critical that the battery is in A1 condition. Other things that can possibly cause this problem, well, you noticed that I mentioned that earthing lead under the bonnet. That is something I've actually been attending to, and I'll get onto that in a few minutes. But there is an earth lead that runs from the bonnet hinge on the bonnet side through to the hinge mounting on the front of the car. And you'd think, well, why would you actually need to earth the bonnet? And reading around, there are several very complicated reasons, apparently to do with, I think, electromagnetic radiation. And again, it's just, all these sort of very complex systems talking to each other. And basically you need to earth the bonnet in order for things to work properly. That's how it was designed. So if that's how it's designed, and they obviously decided that the car needed that, so I've actually been looking at reinstating that recently. So we'll go and have a look at the car in a moment, and I'll just talk you through what I did to get around that particular problem. But the recurring problem that I keep reading about time and time again, not just on Jaguars, this can apply to any car of this kind of era, and possibly even new cars, I don't really know, but a lot of these systems, the anti-lock braking, the traction control, and indeed the gearbox, rely on signals from the ABS sensor. Each of the rear hubs has an ABS sensor in it. Apparently the near side rear hub, the sensor it mounted in there, links in, because everything is kind of so interlinked, you know, everything is linked into each other and everything talks to each other, even on a car that's 25 years old, so heaven knows what it's like on a modern car. But the ABS sensor, the signal from it, that talks to the gearbox, because based on the movement of the wheel, the speed of the vehicle, that will affect what gear the automatic gearbox chooses. It affects the traction control, and it affects the anti-lock braking system. Everything is so interwoven on these cars, and these sensors do pack up from time to time, and when they go down they cause exactly the error messages that I was getting when I drove it out just a couple of evenings ago. So these are the kind of little gremlins that pop up, especially when a car hasn't been used much in recent years. This hasn't seen much use at all in quite a long time now, and these sensors do go down from time to time. They only cost, I don't know, £10–12 each, something like that. So I've ordered a couple of sensors, one for both rear hubs, and that will be probably one of the first things that I get to change. I'm hoping actually that the postie, I'm just keeping an eye out for the postie, because they should be coming today with a pair of new sensors. And also on order, and also it should come today, I've ordered a scanner for the ODB2 diagnostics things in the vehicle itself. Now I did have a scanner, but for whatever reason, even though it listed Jaguar in the drop down list of manufacturers, it doesn't seem to pick up the error codes for this particular car, and I think some of the codes are sort of proprietary to Jaguar and Land Rover products. So I've ordered the correct scanner because it'll come in handy on this Jaguar and also on Dad's Jaguar, the X350, which is a year or so newer than this particular car. So I thought, well, that'll be a really handy thing to have in stock, especially when it costs so much to go to garages, even just to plug your car in at a garage to see what error codes come up. The more you can do yourself back at home, the better it is. The scanner that I've got, it works fine on the Honda, it worked fine on the Jeep, but for some reason on this one, no, doesn't want to play ball. So we've got new ABS sensors coming in the post hopefully today, and hopefully this new scanner as well, and between them I'm hoping we'll be able to get hopefully to the bottom of the problems that I've been having. Change the sensor, reset all the codes, and then obviously we'll take it down the road and just see how it behaves. But let's go and have a quick look at this earthing lead which I was talking about a moment ago, and what I did to hopefully at least fix that potential problem area. So while I wait for that ABS sensor on the scanner to arrive, let's have a look around this. This was yesterday's little task, was to replace the earth lead that was over there, and these are the remains of the earth lead that came off. Let's just come over here. I don't know if you can see that, but it is, let's try a bit of sunlight. It is in particularly spectacularly poor condition. It's literally crumbling. You can just hopefully see that it was just falling to pieces, and it just fell off and disconnected itself. So that can cause, even just something like this earth lead going, can cause real problems in terms of earthing and the whole system efficiency of the car as a whole. And it's really just earthing the bonnet to the car. I mean, it is earthing through the hinge, but once the hinge is all greased up, apparently that can affect the efficiency of this earthing consistently and properly, hence this extra lead. Now, I had a bit of a route through my box of electrical bits and bobs, and I found this lead because this is the one that was on, so it was not insulated or anything, and the way it goes from there down to here, it was just chafing on the front panel here, and over 20 odd years, as well as deteriorating anyway, as you can see. It was also chafing just to add to the problems, and then it eventually disintegrated. So I found this lead, which is a proper, I'm not quite sure what it's off, but it's just in a box of bits. But that should do the trick, plus it is insulated as well, so it's not going to catch on anything or chafe. It's a little bit long, but it actually fitted in pretty well, and I was able to route it in such a way that it's no longer catching, rubbing or fretting on the front panel of the car. And I just had to tie wrap it in place so that it doesn't catch anything when you close the bonnet, but I think this will be a lot more efficient. I cleaned up the mountings on here, hopefully you can see this. I cleaned up the mountings here, and also the bolts that it bolts onto under the front panel here. The easiest way to get at it was actually to pull the grill off, pull this side of the grill mesh off, and you can kind of get in there with a very small socket, and it's in there. Probably can't really see, but that's where the other end of it connects, so I'm hoping that that will be a whole lot more reliable. It could just be that was causing the problems and causing all these error messages to pop up as the original lead gradually fell to pieces. I mean, that's pretty poor. As that fell to pieces, it would have gradually reduced the efficiency of the electrical system as a whole. So I'm hoping that that will, well, if nothing else, it's something that needed fixing. So even if that wasn't the cause of the problems I was having the other evening, it's going to cause a problem at some point in some way or other. So the next thing to do, once the ABS sensors are here, is to jack up the back corner, take the wheel off. While it's off, I can put a bit of copper grease on the studs and all that kind of thing. But yeah, the ABS sensor is on the hub on this side, and this, apparently the near side rear, is the important one from what I've read around. So I just need to wait for these bits and bobs to come, change that ABS sensor, reset all the codes, and then we can go for another test drive. But for now, let's just wait and see when the postie turns up. But yeah, I think that was quite a neat solution to the problem of the bonnet earth. This is the scanner that I've used on other cars, but for some reason it doesn't seem to work very well on this one. Dad had a couple of basic scanners as well. We tried those and they wouldn't see the codes on the Jag either, so yeah, hopefully the one that comes in the post soon will do the job better. Alright, Father Christmas, or rather the postie, has just been by bearing gifts. So these are the ABS, the anti-lock braking system, this speed sensor. So this is the thing that mounts in the rear hub, and that bit picks up the signal from the rear hub. There's like, as the wheel spins around, there's like a cogged, a toothed ring that is attached to the hub, and that spins around with the wheel, and that picks up the signal from it. Where is that? That picks up the signal from it, and that is how the gearbox, the traction control and the anti-lock braking knows what the wheel is up to. So whether the brake is locking or you're losing traction, that kind of thing. So that is the thing that I need to replace. So we've got two of those, one for either side at the back, although these do actually fit the front as well. And then there's this whizzy looking thing, which I haven't figured out yet. But this is the diagnostics thing that I was talking about before. and apparently is very, very good at working with Jaguar and Land Rover products. It probably does way more than I need it to, but it certainly looks like a proper bit of kit. It's nice and it's reassuringly heavy as well, which I like. So there's a cable, and this cable goes off and plugs into the ODBC2. I always forget what they're called. ODBC2, I think, isn't it? The connector, which is under the dash on the Jag. I mean, this will work on other cars, I'm sure, but apparently these are recommended for use on Jaguars, so we'll give this a go. Once I've changed the sensor, I'd like to try and clear all the error codes, because I'm sure there are countless error codes, and they could go back quite a long time. So yeah, I'll clear them with this, all being well, and then we'll see where we are after that. But the priority now, the thing we need to do now, while Harley is busy tapping away, freeing up some reluctant screws on the A40 in the garage there, is get the Jag moved, get the back wheel off, and have a look, see how easy it is to change this ABS sensor. That's what I've just moved it round here, fired up straight away, which is all very strange. So I'll run the back wheel up onto a piece of wood, and it's just a bit easier to get the jack under there. Harley's tapping away at something on the A40, trying to free up a reluctant screw, I think. Intriguingly, the engine management light has actually gone out all on its own. Must have been with having a battery disconnected, I guess. Right, we're nearly ready to jack up. One of the quirks of these is that, or that, they are not the wheel nuts. So don't go trying to put a spanner on those, because it won't work. These are little push-on covers for the wheel nuts. So if you're buying one, make sure you got one of these in the toolkit. Because this little thing, this little plastic thing, this is for removing these little caps. So if we try and get this one off, and that, it sort of pings over. You push it in and it pings over and grabs. There's like a little ledge just inside there, a little lip, and that pulls it out. So we squeeze that one over there like that, and then there we go. In there's that little cap. You just push it out of there, and there you go. So they're just very thin. I'm not sure what they're made of, stainless steel or something like that. But yeah, but you need this little tool to make their removal a whole lot easier than it would otherwise be. And of course you also need the locking wheel nut key thing as well. So that is that one. Hopefully that'll go on there. Yep, that goes on there. So we've actually got the right one for the car. It's even got a little notch in the end there, just to tell you which one has the locking wheel nut underneath it. Right, there we go, wheel off. There's a stand under there, and I've also put some blocks of wood under here, just for belt and braces purposes. So here, so we can see, there we go. So that is where the sensor mounts on the back of the hub. So obviously you've got the brake disc over here, and there it is. There's a little snap connector there. You have to undo that single bolt there, and hopefully it'll pull out. Might give it a bit of a clean while we're under here. I'm not sure what the access is like to the little toothed rotor, so I'll have to give that a bit of a looking at as well if we can get to it. But yeah, on the face of it, at least the sensor is pretty easy to get to. We just have to see if it'll come out. Well, here's a comparison of sensors. The old one came out and the new one there. Clearly you can see that the three contacts on the old original one nearest to me, they were looking pretty rubbish. I'll just put the new one down there. Here you can see that's how it should look. That's how this one looks. That's going to really struggle to pick up any kind of signal at all. That's just completely, you might get away with cleaning it, but you go to all this effort. It's only about 15 quid I think for another one, and that's with a 3-year warranty, so why would you bother? It's actually not too bad to get to. It's held in with a single 8mm bolt. Harley's had a tough day, so we will pop that back in. I was terrified of snapping off this bolt, So I gave it a few brisk taps with this hammer just on the head, just that if there's any corrosion on the threads, if you just give it a little tap on the top, obviously I'm not talking swiping it hard, but just tap it a few times, if there's any corrosion on here, it just breaks the corrosion and it gives you a much better chance of freeing it off without snapping something. Right, well that's that one done. And I think that is the most important of the two, but as we've got a new one for both sides, we might as well do this one while we're at it as well. Some helpers join me now, and yes, there is a stand under there as well as the jack, and we also have some blocks of wood over there, belt and braces, and the wheel when it comes off. I'll also put that under the back as well, just in case the worst happens with the jack. Okie dokie, right, well I have dug out the iCarsoft and I actually deleted the codes a few minutes ago, and then I thought actually I should probably show you how this thing works. So this, just apologies for any iffy reflections, but this plugs in to the port which is tucked away just under here in the footwell, so we put that in there, and then we get this particular series of menus coming up. So let's see what we've got here. So we go, this is the thing that you move around, sometimes it's a bit hard to see, but diagnostics, and then this one is actually, this actual bit of kit is actually coded up for just Jaguar and Land Rover. So we go Jaguar, and we do vehicle select, and we pick the closest car. I hope you can see that, the closest car in the list. So we go XJ, which is there, and we go down here. Now we've got 2001, which is this shape car, and then it's got 2002, 2005. Now anything from 03 onwards is the later shape car, the X350, so that's not actually right. So the closest is 2001, because that'll still be this shape of car. So we'll go with that, and we'll pop the, where are the keys? There we go. So we'll pop the key in there and turn the ignition on, just so that the lights are all on. Alright, set ignition to on, F1 for OK. So there we go, and it actually does it module by module. This is quite a tricky bit of kit, this is. Like I say, I hope this is coming out alright. So Jaguar, old XJ, yeah, it says X300 2001, but of course by 2001 it was actually the X308, but we'll go with that. So let's see, F1 OK, so we'll press that, and we'll go into auto scan, which is that one, and this is where it goes away and goes through each module. Now when I did this previously, we were getting one fault in the ECM and one in the TCM, so it even scans the driver's seat module, the passenger door module, so it's all quite whizzy. I hope you can see that okay. I'm just trying to get it so we don't got too many reflections. It shows some fault in the security locking module, but that doesn't sound particularly important, so I'm not going to worry about that one. What we'll do after this is just take it for a bit of a run and see how we go. Now there are two ways of resetting the codes. You can do it at a fairly high level and just erase all, or you can go into module by module and delete the codes in there. So when I did it a few moments ago, I just did the erase all from the top level, and then we'll see how that goes when we go out for a little drive in a short while. So this is how it works anyway. I mean, there's lots of functionality in this thing. I don't have any skin in the game in terms of iCarsoft. I'm just a user of one of their products, but on the face of it, it actually seems to be quite a clever bit of kit. And I think without something like this, you are kind of flying blind with these slightly more recent cars. Yeah, I mean, this car is 25 years old, so heaven knows what it must be like doing diagnostics on anything remotely modern. So anyway, here we have a clean bill of health, so that all seems quite promising. There are certain tests you can also do with the engine running. You can test the live voltage readings, that kind of thing. But for the purposes of testing the Jag at the moment, I think that'll probably do. So I'm going to take it for a quick run out and see how it goes on, see how it behaves, and see if there's anything else to do now that we've changed that rear ABS sensor. So fingers crossed. Dad kindly donated this Jaguar toolkit, which I believe is actually out of an XJ40, one of the slightly older Jaguar XJs. This, I think, fitted on the inner wing, if I remember right, on those cars. The space for a toolkit on this car is on the bulkhead on the passenger side, but there's no sign of a toolkit in there. Now whether someone swiped that over the years, who knows, but this is the next best thing. But we've got lots and lots of lovely Jaguar branded spanners here, including that adjustable. Yeah, there we go, by British. Got a nice little tyre pressure gauge as well. Just go for a little test run and see if she behaves. There's a little bit of a noise from the front shock absorber. I think it's a bush. I'm not too worried about that. I just want to make sure that the dashboard doesn't light up like a Christmas tree. So we've changed the ABS sensor on the near side rear, which I believe is the most important of them. I haven't done the one on the offside rear yet. I'll do that another time. I just wanted to give the diagnostic thing a bit of a test, and then take it for a run, clear all the codes, take it for a run, start with a clean slate, see what we end up with. Okay folks, well, we went out for a little bit of a test drive. A couple of miles down the road, one of the error messages did flag up again on the little readout on the dashboard. So we drove it back here, and this time I plugged in the diagnostic tool, and instead of doing like the high level erase everything option, I went into both of the modules that were showing a problem, the engine control module and the transmission control module. And did the erase or reset of the codes individually in there, thinking that maybe a slightly lower level deletion of the codes might just work slightly differently than doing it at the top level menu, which is what I did before. Now I've had it out again down the road, and we've probably done like a bit of a run round, just going up and around here, maybe 10-12 miles, something like that. No signs of error codes. I went out to a little meeting yesterday, again no signs of any error codes there either, so we may not be out of the woods yet, but I've got a feeling that things, well, the signs are that things are probably just settling down a bit, because the car has seen so little use in recent years. It's been off the road about 3 years, and in the years leading up to that it saw very little use as well, just a couple of hundred miles a year for maybe 5 or 6 years, in the final years of it being used by the previous owner. So you know, there's an argument that really one of the main things to do is just to put some miles on it and get it working. And I'm sure changing that rear ABS sensor was a very good thing, because the sensors, as I showed before, they were just completely clogged up. And I'll probably do the one on the other side as well at some point as well. So I think at this point in time, with the car running and no code showing, I think we'll probably wrap up this particular video, and then obviously we'll have future reports as and when things sort of settle down, or there are future problems. Who knows? You know, it kind of goes with the territory a little bit with this kind of car. I know when I had the Jeep before, which was before this, it took quite a while to get that to actually run properly and as it should. There were all sorts of problems I had. I was getting all sorts of error messages. There was problems with the LPG. There was a misfire. I changed all the plug leads, the spark plugs themselves, and that had a twin plug head on it, the Hemi V8 in the Jeep, and so that was 16 spark plugs that had to be replaced. I ended up getting a guy at the LPG servicing garage. He actually did all that for me. I also got in, the coil packs, he fitted those as well, new plugs, coil packs, various other little sensors as well. And there was also a problem with a thing called the MDS, which was like a cylinder shutdown system, presumably in the name of economy, whereas under certain cruise conditions it would actually cut out 4 of the cylinders on the Jeep, so it ran on 4 rather than the 8. But that never really worked properly, and that threw up all sorts of error messages as well. I actually found a company in the States, and they produced a plug-in module which went into the ODB port, same as this diagnostics tool, and that actually overrode the Jeep's internal system so that it always ran on all 8 cylinders and never tried to cut back to 4 under certain conditions. And after that it actually drove fine, you know. So there's always something. The discovery before the Jeep, I had to do so much work on that. It already had a rebuilt V8 engine in it. It was also on LPG, and after a little while the head gaskets went on it, so that had, the top end had to be rebuilt again. The suspension had some fancy trick suspension on it, active cornering, that needed redoing, some of the pipe work on that. And then the engine went again, which head gaskets went again. By that point in time there was quite a lot of serious rust in the back chassis. Front inner wings were starting to go, inside the rear doors as well, where the arches, when you open the back doors, it was starting to rust there. So that's when I threw the towel in with the disco and we got the Jeep. And like I say, that was far from plain sailing as well. And the Jag, yeah, there's just a few little niggles, which is kind of, it goes with the territory with this kind of car of this kind of age. You know, if I'd bought a BMW it would probably be exactly the same, possibly even worse. So, you know, you go in buying these things with your eyes open, knowing that there'll be something to do, that kind of thing. And it's another project car in a way. You know, these cars need looking after. They're not going to run straight out the box after all these years. So anyway, I think we'll probably pack this one up. Thank you so much for watching this update on the Jaguar. As and when there is more news, of course, I will do a video all about it. But don't worry, we will still be featuring lots and lots of much older cars here on the Old Classic Car channel. So please stick with the channel. If you're not subscribed yet, please think about subbing. There is also channel membership open if you want to sort of support the overheads of going to many of the shows that we get to. That would be very, very much appreciated, and a big thumbs up and thanks to the people who have already signed up for channel membership. And yeah, well, there'll be many, many more videos about old cars coming along very, very soon. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.